Hello and welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Holly Wharton. I've been an entrepreneur since 1999, and I know firsthand how difficult it can be to build a business without the right mindset. This is a podcast for those of us who struggle with showing up in our business with confidence and authenticity, who resist taking big action because of fears and doubts, who know deep down that it's possible to create something bigger, and yet you're not. This podcast combines powerful strategies on how to upgrade your business mindset, along with practical business tips to grow your business more easily in a way that feels aligned. This podcast features solo shows with me and also interviews with inspiring women entrepreneurs from around the world, including my monthly co-hosted episodes with Joe Casey. My goal is to help you grow your business more quickly and easily by transforming your mindset. For me, mindset work is a lifelong practice, and I want to help you make a habit out of mindset work. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, let's get into this week's episode. Hello, and welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast, episode 250. This is your host, Holly Wharton, and I'm back with another co-hosted episode with the fabulous Joe Casey. Today, we talk about something that's super relevant for both of us, and I think for probably you as well. Who heals the healers? Who coaches the coaches? Why is this an issue? Because we're not used to being vulnerable, and oftentimes we don't know where to go to get help when we need it. Having an online business can be lonely. Sometimes we lose friends that we had before we started off on this personal development journey of healing and coaching. And oftentimes we're the person that other people go to with their problems. So it can be hard to reach out and ask for help when we're often the receptacle for other people's stuff. It can be hard to find places where it's more give and take, where we have healing coaching friends who are kind of on level ground with each other. And we can have that, I help, you help me. But that can be challenging too, because oftentimes we feel like we have to keep up appearances. If we're a business coach, we often feel like we have to have the perfect business. If, say, I'm the business mindset alchemist, I sometimes feel like I have to have all my mindset shit together, even though I tell you on a regular basis that I don't, that I still do work with myself, that I still do work with other people, trying to get help with my mindset. There's still a part of me that feels like I have to have my shit together. And, people always say to share your shit when you're on the other side of it, when you can come out, when you can use it as a learning experience and teach people, I recently went through this. Here's what I learned from it. Here's what you can learn from it. But where do we go when we're in the middle of the shit? That's very, very challenging. And so that's what this episode is all about. We're going to talk about why coaches and healers still need support from other people, why we can't do it all ourselves. We talk about energetic boundaries and why we need them and how do we set these boundaries. We talk about what happens when we don't get the support we need, how to recognize when we need help before it's too late and we're burnt out or overwhelmed, and why we need spaces where we can show up as we are, all the bits of us, and where to find these spaces. So I hope that you find this episode interesting and useful. And before we get into the actual episode, I am going to once again invite Joe Casey to come on and tell you a little bit about her membership program, which, as I've mentioned before, is super awesome. I've had a look inside and I think it's got lots of really interesting and useful stuff, super useful templates and things that a new coach or healer can use.
We know that building a coaching, healing or holistic business can be challenging and isolating. So at the Meaningful Business Academy, we don't think you should have to go it alone. We've pulled together all of the tools, trainings and support you need to get more clients and make more income, without you having to resort to the dark arts or sleazy manipulation techniques. Instead, you'll find done-for-you templates, masterclasses, guest expert interviews, and a supportive, like-minded community, all for a low monthly price. Check out the Meaningful Business Academy at meaningfulbizacademy.com, because it's time to do business differently. Hi everybody, this is Joe Casey, and I'm here with Holly Wharton. This is our monthly joint podcast, and today we're going to be talking about something that has been on my mind a lot, and Holly and I, sometimes we choose the topics literally months in advance, and sometimes they are just, this is what's really pressing for me right now. And we just had like a bit of a chat about it, and we filled like 20 minutes of just like, oh, and this. So we've got lots to talk about on this. We're going to be talking about who heals the healers and who coaches the coaches, because this is a pattern that I notice in myself, and I notice it in my clients who are coaches and healers and holistic folks, about the fact that we are so very good, we are gifted even at caring for other people, healing other people, using our gifts to help people move through this world in a way that is easier and gentler and, you know, all of that good stuff. And yet time and time again, I see us burning ourselves out, or I see us not living our fullest lives because so much of our energy is spent and not replenished through healing other people. And so that's just something that I'm thinking about a lot at the moment. And mentioned to Holly, and Holly said, oh yeah, when we have lots to talk about that. So I'm going to throw it over to Holly almost immediately and kind of say, you know, that's my experience with it. Is this something that resonates with you too?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I am a big fan, and I say this all the time on my own podcast and my blog posts and when I'm talking in my books. I do a lot of work with myself, but I also work with other people. Obviously, I get help from other people. I get support from other people. I get healing from other people. I get coaching from other people. But it is something that I don't do consistently. I'll kind of go through phases with it. And I might not always get the support that I need when I need it. Sometimes it takes me time to realize I need some extra help. And I do have a problem, and I recognize this, in opening up and being vulnerable and really spilling it all out. I have my Master Gut group, which we meet, you know, a couple times a month. I'm really good about being open with them, but not always necessarily with other coaches and healers.
So what? If this isn't too personal, what am I saying? This isn't too personal question. We're doing it because it is personal.
If you don't mind telling this to the world.
Yeah. There's no one listening. It's just you and I. What do you think gets in the way for you of getting that help? Is it that, you know, you don't always recognize it, or is it that there's something else?
What gets in the way of me getting the help that I need when I need it?
Yeah.
I think I do have this underlying feeling. Like, some part of me thinks that I should be able to just deal with everything myself, even though another part of me knows that, like, obviously I can't do everything myself and I need support. But I think because I have so many tools in my toolkit and I help other people and I know how to help myself, I think sometimes I feel like I should keep on trucking on and doing it on my own. And sometimes it's like I don't even think about getting help sometimes. And then there are other times where I feel like a very serious need to get help. But yeah, it's like sometimes I don't even think about it. And I think it's because that part of me thinks, well, you've got all the tools. You should be able to do this on your own.
Yeah, we were talking before we started recording about how that's a refrain that kind of can go through your brain if you are somebody who's very skilled and does have a lot of those tools around. Well, you know, you should kind of be doing this for yourself, shouldn't you? And also there are other people in our lives who will say, I thought you knew this stuff.
Yeah.
So there's a guilt and there's a shame, I think, that can come up. Around it. Shouldn't I be on top of all this by now? Like, shouldn't I be fully baked as a human? Shouldn't I have reached that state of?
Yeah, it's like me with the business mindset stuff. Like, I'm very clear about the fact that I've been working on my business mindset with myself, with other people for the last 5 years. I've still got a ton of stuff to work on. I still come up with limiting beliefs and blocks and fears and crap that gets in the way of me doing my business and taking the action I need to take. And I'm very clear about that, but yet I still, again, there's a part of me that feels like I'm the business mindset alchemist. I should have all my shit together. My business mindset should be sparkly and shiny and glittery and perfect and super supportive. And it's not that way. Like, I'm still doing work, not as much as I was in the beginning, but I've still got a lot of work to do.
I know. When we talk about it like this, it's like, it's so obvious. It's like, oh, so you're a human then? You haven't elevated to this kind of level? But of course, because we're humans and we grow and we change and we have to revisit the stuff and use the tools. And sometimes the same issue will frustratingly come up again and again, even though it's like whack-a-mole, even though you think, have I not dealt with this now? But it comes up in a different way, because that's part of being a human.
Mm. Or it comes up, it's kind of the same kind of thing, but at a different level, because you've grown. And so it's like kind of a higher level aspect of the same thing.
Uh-huh. Is it Steve Maraboli who says new level, new devil? I can't remember who that's from. But yeah, that's definitely true. And doing the work that I do around feminine conditioning and those things that hold us back from shining as brightly as we deserve and as we need to, that kind of idea that there are some kind of common things that come up again and again, like this thing of being visible. You know, being visible is something that's not like, oh yeah, I've got that now, I'm visible. I can, launch something and be doing Facebook Lives every day and be on podcasts and be super visible. And then it's like, oh, I want to go hide in a cave now. And it's just as hard next time to come out of the cave. Maybe not just as hard, but it's still hard to kind of go, okay, it's safe for me to be visible. I can be out there. What I have is worthy. You have to go back to the tools. It's not. And I wonder if it's this kind of culture that we have, especially in personal development, of like, I can heal everything. You just take this pill or take these vitamins or take my course or follow my blueprint and you will be fearless forever. And that's not true. But I think on some level, even, those of us who, I'm going to use the should word, maybe should know better, can still fall for it. Or inner critics can fall for it. We can still get tangled up in that self-talk.
Well, it's because it's so appealing. Like, who doesn't want a magic wand? Who doesn't want the magic pill that will fix everything forever? Like, that would be so easy.
Mm-hmm. It would be brilliant. I would adore that. There are many times I want the instant. And I think that, that has led me to invest in courses and things that, I kind of go, why did you buy this? You knew that this wasn't going to deliver. On some level you knew, but there's that fear of, I haven't got the answers. I need the extra thing. I need the blueprint. I need the roadmap. I
need someone else to show me the way because I can't figure it out myself.
Yeah, there is that. And so in some ways we can kind of go, because it's ironic. So we can kind of go, okay, I'll buy the course. I need someone else to show me the way. And yet that doesn't involve us having to be vulnerable and say, I haven't got all the answers.
Yeah. It's a weird, double-sided, I don't even want to say coin because it's like a double-sided sword.
Well, I guess that if you invest in a course, that's really easy. If I click that PayPal button, I don't have to say, do you know what? I'm really having a day where I doubt all my abilities and I'm not sure if I can do this. And at my darkest hour, I worry, blah, 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 blah. I don't have to do any of that. I just have to click the PayPal button and that kind of relieves some of that anxiety. Whereas actually reaching out to a friend or a colleague or my coach or my mastermind and saying these things, that requires me to be vulnerable. That requires me to be emotionally, naked and reveal my soft, squishy parts. And that comes with fear and with shame. So I'm wondering sometimes if actually buying the courses is a way of us trying to outrun that feeling of vulnerability.
Yeah. It's like we're getting help, but not exactly the kind of help we need.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually, in fact, not remotely the kind of help that we need because it's rarely another course or strategy or blueprint that you need.
Yeah.
It's very rarely that.
Yeah. But it can be really hard because and this is really, I know I do it as well. It's a really crappy thing, but we put out this image of ourselves online that's not 100% accurate because obviously if I'm having a bad day, I don't put all my shit out online. So even though I try to be authentic, people aren't seeing 100% of me.
Yeah. I mean, I always think that's such a tricky line to walk, because I say to folks a lot, and this has very much been my experience, the more you can show up as you, the more you can share your opinions and your values and the why behind your work, and the more people get a chance to resonate with you and to decide, make that informed decision as to whether you are the right person for them or not. But then there's also, if I've had a row with my partner and I'm doing the ugly cry with mascara all down my face, and I'm having one of those days where I just think, I feel like I'm a piece of shit, why am I to be doing this? I'm not going to go online and do that, because that is way too vulnerable, and that is also not relevant to my business.
Yeah.
It's almost like that. I don't know. It's too much. It's too much exposure. It's like a bait and switch for people. It's like when you get into a conversation with somebody at a bus stop or, at the train station or something, and they suddenly start telling you these really intimate details of their life. And it's just like, whoa, too much.
Too much information.
Yeah. So the sharing the really bad stuff, or the, just the low days online, I think isn't appropriate.
No.
Brene Brown has this phrase of, you share those moments with the people who have earned the right, and social media hasn't earned the right to do that. I know there are people who have built brands around doing that, but then at the same time, I do think it's important to be able to share the relevant struggles, and the fact that there's something about, I think, sharing it when you've got a bit of distance from it.
Yeah.
So I have a post in my Facebook group on a Friday, and it's called Failure Friday. Mm-hmm. And it's to encourage people to kind of, share the times when you tried and you failed, because actually the victory is in the trying, not necessarily where you succeeded, and what can you learn from it. And in that post, I shared the story, and I sure probably shared it on the podcast before, of one of the first paying clients that I had, who was paying me buttons, basically, and did a session with him, and he revealed that he was not only in the car, he was on cocaine at the time in our coaching session. Or I shared this time in the first group program that I launched, and 2 people signed up, which was worse than nobody signing up, because then I had to go to those 2 people and say, this didn't feel remotely, but and I worked with them one-on-one. I think it's important to share those experiences and what you learn from them, because otherwise people end up with this feeling that, well, I'm not perfect. Everything I do isn't a massive success right off the bat. Therefore, there's something wrong with me. And that's not the case at all. I do think we need more transparency around that. But then that still begs the question. So what do you do on those really low days?
Mm. Yeah, because also, even if you are working with a coach, you're probably not working with a coach or healer who can attend to you at, right now.
Mm. Yeah,
emergency session. 5 minutes. Exactly.
So, I mean, that's traditionally where the role of friends come in. Mm. But one of the patterns that I see show up a lot, actually, and it was one of those that I kind of thought was just me for a long time, but I see this happen a lot, particularly with people who have recently got into a modality such as, they've learned how to be a coach, or they've, doing their Reiki practice or NLP or something like that, is that your friendships change, because as you learn these tools, you start to view the world a bit differently, and you start to act in different ways, and you change your patterns, and that can really test friendships, and that can actually be quite lonely after a while. I can remember having a group of really close, there was 4 of us really close friends, and when I started getting into personal development and doing my coaching work, it was like I no longer had any interest in let's just sit around and just have a bitch and a moan. It's just like I don't do that anymore, and I can't see the point. And I'm also aware that I probably came off as super judgmental during that, but it was really difficult, and there was a real sadness there that these were women who we had got on so well, and yet they weren't my people anymore, and I wasn't theirs, and there was a real loss there. And then it's, well, how do you still cultivate friendships? How do you build those friendships up in a way that is balanced and it is supportive and isn't all about work or being perfect or let's try this tool.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. I think a lot of us, once we've kind of moved away from some of those earlier friendships in our lives and we start getting into the personal development world and getting into coaching and healing and all that, often then most of our friends are from the business world.
Yeah.
And so they're peers and, they have all these tools and they could theoretically be super helpful to have these kinds of conversations with, but then also they have businesses. So you might also feel like you have to maintain a certain image in front of them.
Super. Yes. So I mean, this is kind of tangential. It's not, exactly it, but I've recently joined, a membership site from a coach who I've worked with in the past, somebody I really, really admire. And when I got into the membership site, there's loads of people that I know in there. And I immediately thought, I don't think I can show up and go, I'm really struggling with this. Can someone help me? Because some of them have been clients, some of them, do I want, and I had to really wrestle with this thing of I'm still doing the thing of expecting myself to show up perfectly and never show any of the kind of the behind the scenes and the inner workings and things like that. But I think it does require vulnerability to show up and say, I don't have all the answers. I need some help with this. And on one level, I know that. And people listening, I know you know that as well. But at the same time, it's really hard to do in practice. It's really hard.
Yeah. Yeah, especially on something as kind of public as an online forum. I mean, I think one thing is having one-to-one conversation with someone, but in a community like that, that's even harder.
Yeah, it is. And yet the purpose of the community is for other entrepreneurs to support one another. And it does become tricky. Don't go away. We'll be right back. We know that building a coaching, healing or holistic business can be challenging and isolating. So at the Meaningful Business Academy, we don't think you should have to go it alone. We've pulled together all of the tools, trainings and support you need to get more clients and make more income, without you having to resort to the dark arts or sleazy manipulation techniques. Instead, you'll find done-for-you templates, masterclasses, guest expert interviews and a supportive, like-minded community, all for a low monthly price. Check out the Meaningful Business Academy at meaningfulbizacademy.com because it's time to do business differently. What about new friendships? How do you find new friendships with some of my clients call them muggles, people who don't work in the healing arts or coaching and things like that. It seems really rude saying that.
It does. It seems very disrespectful. Normal people. It's very weird because my life is so much a part of this healing coaching world. And a lot of my good friends are online. I don't have a lot of friends in the offline real world. It's a weird life. Like to me, it's normal, but and it probably is for a lot of people listening to this, but it's very weird to me. I think the only people I come into contact with, even that aren't in this world, are, say, people in my coaching school, I can't even, my kickboxing school. So I do kickboxing a couple times a week. Those are just normal people that do a variety of things. And then my meetup group, which is for women walkers. So it's women from all walks of life who just want to get outdoors and walk. And then last weekend, for example, I went on a Lowland leader training course and I was the only non-teacher in there. Everyone else was a school teacher who was doing it to get, their DAV certification to help lead DAV groups. And I was just doing it because, I'm leading people on walks. That was really interesting because it was such a different group of people. It was just people that I don't normally come into contact with, and they were lovely, and it was a great time, and it was so nice to have contact with people who were not in this business world. But it doesn't happen to me very often.
Me neither. And it's one of the things that I know that, my family do worry about for me, the fact that, but you don't have any friends that you go out and see. Well, I do, but, like you, most of my friends are people that I have, not that I've not met in real life, but that I have the majority of my friendship with them is conducted with them online. You and I are in the same country, and we have met up on occasions, but we live at opposite ends of the country.
Yeah.
So we don't do it that often.
We've done it twice.
Yes, we've done it. All.
I know. I feel like I talk to you all the time. But yes, we've only actually seen each other without a computer screen in front of ourselves twice.
It feels like so much more.
And that
blows my theory out of the water.
But that's what it's like in our world. I mean, I don't think we're the only two people who are like this. I mean, I consider you to be a good friend. I have other friends that I consider to be real, like the women on my master gut. I love them. They're such good, deep friends to me. Mm-hmm. But one of them I've only seen once offline. Another one I've only seen maybe 4 or 5 times. But we have these really deep connections. So I think our world is changing to the point where we can form deep connections and deep friendships with people, even though we only see them on the other end of Skype.
Mm. No, I do agree. I mean, I don't want to sound a bit defensive, Mum. Do you have real friendships, even though you make them on the internet? And I do agree, and I think it takes. I suppose the thing that I've realised is it takes conscious effort to do that. Because it's not like you're just going to bump into somebody at the photocopier in the office. Or, I kind of think about friendships that I've had in the past and how I've made friends. It's been because, you're in physical proximity. You worked at the same place, or, your kids went to the same school, or you went to the same school, But online, we have to make more of an effort. And, I still love it when, I meet somebody and you kind of go, should we just meet up for a virtual cuppa? I really like doing that because I do think there's a real need for that. I think it's really interesting though, one of the dangers I see with friendships outside of this world, and actually even in this world, is that because of the work that we do, those friendships can become quite lopsided. By which I mean, so I have a number of relationships in my life that I've realised that, actually I'm the one that people go to for advice or for, someone to talk to, because that's part of who I am. I'm really good at that, and I love doing that. It feels really good to do that for people. But then I then feel that it's like there's no space for me to reciprocate and go, actually, I could do with a bit of help and support with this, because this pattern of a relationship has been established, which is lopsided. And there have been times where I've tried to do that, and just, the other person is just like, how
do I deal with this?
Yeah,
what's going on here?
Because it kind of breaks up the dynamic of the relationship that's been established. And I realised that, I can't blame other people for that. That's me that has been as complicit in establishing that. And I've had this conversation with numerous other coaches and healers, in that our default comfort zone is being that person that other people can rely on, other people can talk to. But there's a danger there that then insulates us from that kind of, that vulnerability, there's that word again, that revelation, that self-revelation that's required in establishing and really deepening a friendship. We can be our own worst enemies with that, because we can default to our skill set.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what happens if we don't get support? We don't get the support that we need, and we just kind of keep trying to figure it out on our own, or just suffering with it? Like,
we burn ourselves to a crisp.
Yeah.
We frazzle. And again, this is a pattern that I notice in myself. And it's, it's one of the reasons I first got into doing work around resiliency, was because I recognised this pattern in myself. And it still comes up. I think it's something that for women we struggle with a lot, because part of our feminine conditioning says that to be good, we should put other people first.
Mm-hmm.
We should care for other people. And this is not me saying turn into a big selfish arsehole. That, you know, it's good to be, you know, it's a really nice thing. We need more kindness and empathy in the world, not less.
Yeah.
But we need it with good boundaries. And I think that's the bit that many, many of us miss, myself included. I am far from perfect on this. We miss having boundaries around how much effort we're putting out for other people and how little kind of nourishment we take back or support we ask for, until quite often it's too late and we hit that kind of I'm exhausted point or I'm burnt out. And I see this happening time and time again with my peers, with my clients, because it's one of the things that we wrestle with. We have this gift and we want to give this gift liberally. But at the same time, we can give to the point where we have nothing left and we are spent. And I think if you do that for your business as well, you know, you've kind of got the double whammy of it.
Exactly. So what are the warning signs? Like, how do we know when we need to get this extra support? Because sometimes it's hard to, when you're in the middle of the shit, you sometimes don't realize that you need help.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just feel like crap.
Yeah. Because I also think another pernicious thing that we have is this idea that, well, we have to do it all on our own. Otherwise it's weakness if we don't. So, you know, that we have this really individualistic culture that is all around, you know, solo entrepreneur and be the hero of your own journey and all of that stuff. And I'm more and more coming to the conclusion that we're not meant to be doing this on our own. And I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but there's a phrase that I keep going back to, is that if we have this model of capitalism, for want of a better word, that is really messed up, that is all about exploiting resources to their depletion. If you're running your own business, you are your primary resource. And if we're still modelling on this idea that you exploit your resources to depletion, then we're exploiting ourselves to depletion. And so what can happen is we end up getting burnt out, or just, you know, at its best, we're not operating at the top of our game. At its worst, we end up having to, you know, shut up shop and go and do some serious healing on ourselves, because we end up just burning out. And I think some of the warning signs of things like that are loneliness.
Yeah.
Feeling very isolated and like, I have to do this on my own. I have to figure out a way of doing this on my own. Shift in energy. So being really tired all the time.
Not sleeping enough.
Just not struggling to switch your mind off. That kind of, oh, I need to do that, and I need to do that. And, you know, all those signs of being in a stressed and depleted state, you know, forgetting things, not being as efficient as you would normally be, not being, you know, dropping the ball and things, not being on top of things. I know that there was a time when I was super stressed and I was doing an event in London and realised as I got to the train station, I'd booked the wrong tickets for the wrong days. Oh. So I'd booked my return going back to Manchester for the day I was meant to be going to London, and vice versa. And I was there in the train station going, I have no idea how I've even done that. But I've done that because our brains just don't operate that well on stress. So noticing those types of things, or the silly mistakes that you're making, the forgetting stuff, can all be indications of, I need to be doing something differently here. And that feeling of overwhelm, I think, as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a classic symptom for me, making stupid little mistakes that under a normal situation, it would be really easy for me to get right. But because I'm stressed and overwhelmed, I just do ridiculous things.
So the other thing that I think is really important is about this thing of boundaries, not just boundaries around work and how much time we spend on other things, but I think there's something about energetic boundaries as well. Yes.
Yeah. And energetic boundaries in our relationships, not only with clients, but with friends, business friends, personal friends, whatever. And kind of not taking on too much of other people's stuff and being willing to get the help that we need.
Yeah. I think particularly if you are, HSP, highly sensitive, if you're very intuitive, if you're, naturally somebody who is very sensitive to other people's energies, then it can get really overwhelming really quickly. And if we then don't have the language or the mechanisms to put some of those boundaries in place, it can really take it out of you. There could be days when you come out with interactions with people and you kind of go, I'm exhausted and it's only 10 in the morning. It's like I've not done anything that I needed to get done.
Yeah. Or another thing that I notice when I'm kind of in that exhausted state is I can't get anything done. I can't focus on anything. Yeah. I'll go to clear out my inbox. I just can't manage to respond to the emails. Or if I have to do some work, I can't, it's like I can't focus to get stuff done. And I end up browsing Reddit for a couple of hours or doing unproductive stuff because my brain can't focus on the stuff that I need to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do that totally. Or I find that I do things and they just take me 3 times longer to do than I would normally do. Writing a blog post, it's there are days I can, the flow, and there's other times it's like I'm squeezing words out of a stone. That's how it feels like with my brain. It's like I'm trying to excavate every single word. It's such hard work.
So what's the solution? So if we get to this point, we finally managed to recognize that we need help. What do we do? Who heals the healers? Who coaches the coaches? Where do we need to go?
I think
what are the options?
There's a number of places, and I think it's I don't think it's a one-hit thing. I genuinely think we need a cultural thing. This is something that I'm thinking about more and more. We need a shift in our way of thinking about this, so that this isn't just I feel burnt out, I feel exhausted, I need to go hire a coach, or I need to go do some sessions with a healer, and then I'll be right. And then I'll go back to business as usual. Yeah, exactly. I think we need to be cultivating collectivism much more. Community. I mean, one of the things that I just instinctively thought this is what people need when I was designing my group program, the Coaches Collective. And now after running 2 rounds of it, I'm like, oh my God, I underestimated even that, is the need to have a space where you can show up as you. You can show up with the good, the bad, the ugly, the funny, the quirky, that you can show up vulnerably, where there isn't that pressure to kind of, I want to ask for help, but I also want to be I have to kind of show that I also have my stuff together, where people can actually get to know you. And I think whether that is through formal masterminds, if you can find places where they have put some thought and some effort into this, I think that's really, really beneficial. You can set up these spaces. One of the things that just warms my heart so much is that the last group program that I did, the last round of Coaches Collective, that group have now, we almost have a passing of the baton thing. That group have now carried on meeting without me. There's a little bit of me that kind of goes, I want to be there. But it's not appropriate for me to be there. They have that group and they are still there, support each other. They are each other's people. And that is lovely. Yeah. You have your master gut. I have mastermind that I'm in, that I've been in for a number of years, that we've really worked hard at cultivating that environment where, we've got some ground rules, we have some boundaries, but we also have some agreements that we will show up as we are. This is not a place where we will put on a front. We will be kind, we will be honest, we will be vulnerable, we will be courageous. And it's really important to have those places. Yes, have a coach as well. I'm the coach that I'm working with this year is Tanya Geisler. She's amazing. And she also has this real drive for cultivating community and recognising the need for that kind of collective support. I think there is also something about using our own tools.
Yes.
And taking the time out to use our own tools.
Exactly. Because even if you have NLP, Psych-K, whatever it is that you use, you need to make the time, self-care time, to use them with yourself.
Yes. One of the phrases that Tanya Geyser had actually said to me is, you need to treat yourself with exquisite reverence. I thought, oh my God, I don't think I've treated that's so
Indulgent.
outside of my emotional kind of really exquisite reverence. And the more I think about it, the more I think, yeah, actually we do. We all do. Because, it can sound like a cliche. If you're not refilling the well, then you have nothing to give to other people. But actually that is so true. And self-care has become this almost like eye-rolly thing of, go and have a bubble bath
yeah.
Self-care is self-maintenance. It's self-nourishment. It's giving ourselves the fuel and the tending that we need to operate as fully rounded humans. And I think we almost need it double for us healers, because we're giving out so much of our energy and our life force and our care and our healing. And yet we have this double bind, because we're the ones who do the healing, not the ones who need the healing. And so we resist it. It can feel indulgent, or we kind of go, oh, okay, well, I'll do like a 10-minute meditation because that's all I have time for today. Or do you know, we kind of, we downplay our own need for self-care and nurturing, which we need to stop, because I keep saying this, I see this as a pattern again and again. I think it's so tied to the messages that we get as women. And then we add this double layer of being a healer, because it feels good to use our gifts. We've been given this gift. Why shouldn't we use them? But we also need to use them on ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that is the bit that we are missing. And that's the bit that will keep us small, that will keep us tired and not being able to radiate out at the level that we need to, because we've been told somewhere along the line by patriarchy that that's a selfish thing to do.
Mm. And we keep hearing that kind of analogy of the oxygen mask in the plane. Mm-hmm. Got to put your mask on first before you take care of other people. And it's like we hear that over and over, but somehow it doesn't sink in that we absolutely have to take care of ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And somebody pointed this out to me not so long ago, that actually that's still playing into this idea for women. It's somehow selfish, because it's kind of saying, no, it's not selfish. If you do that, then you can take care of more people. But actually, how about just put the oxygen mask on, because you need some friggin' oxygen. Yeah. Because you don't want to die either. I think we do have this real kind of knot of kind of cultural stuff and belief stuff around, yeah, but I can do it faster than other people. I don't need it in the same way as other people. I'll do the shortcut version of the self-care or the nurturing, or and there are some realities to it as well. There's time. There's how do you build this in and still be able to do all of the things. Maybe the answer is we can't do all of the things. We need to be a bit more judicious about which things we're putting our energy to.
Yeah, and you've got to prioritize.
Yeah.
And sometimes put yourself at the higher priority levels.
Yeah, I think I'm not there yet, but I think on some level we have to put ourselves at the center of our priority all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I
struggle with that.
I was just thinking on Monday, I was so tired just physically from the weekend doing the training course, and mentally, because I was learning new stuff that I was totally different from anything that I'm used to learning. And then I had traffic coming back from Oxford on Sunday. Monday, got up, I was trying to work. I had one of those days where I couldn't focus. And I knew I needed to take a nap, because I also hadn't slept very well the night before. And I wasn't closing down and taking a nap. I was just trying to forge on ahead, but I wasn't focusing, felt really guilty, finally said to my husband, I need to take a nap, just so you know, getting off the computer, because he works from home too, so we're in the same house, office, whatever. And so I took an hour and 45-minute nap and felt amazing afterwards, and I got so much done. How amazing my day would have been if I'd just done that earlier on in the day and taken advantage of the time, but I didn't, out of guilt, because he was working downstairs in his office. I felt bad that I was going to be taking a nap when he was working. Ridiculous stuff. And he's so supportive when I have to take a nap or when I'm not feeling well. And he always says, why didn't you do this earlier? But, patterns.
Yeah. Patterns, totally. I have that too. Yeah, my husband will say, well, you don't have to do anything today. And I'll be like, I do. I have to be doing, because if I'm not, what does that make me? And yeah, these things are so pernicious and so kind of run so deep with us. And we have to keep reminding ourselves and one another. And I also think there's something about modelling for each other as well. I mean, I know this again goes to it's not selfish to do this. You're helping other people. But yeah, if we can also model for one another, taking a nap, taking a break when you need to, not working the 12-hour days, taking the day off when you've had the really busy few days beforehand, listening to your body, tuning in. If we can start to model that, then that starts to shift the culture around it as well. But we have to do it together. You know, we can't just be one person, and we can't just keep running into the wall and falling back down exhausted afterwards and going, why did that happen? I know why that happened. Okay, I'll never do that again. Okay, feeling better. Back at it. Yeah.
It's hard to break the patterns.
It is very hard to break the patterns, yes. Anything else that you want to say on this subject? I feel like
we've covered it.
Yeah, I feel like we've come to a nice kind of natural conclusion with it, which is to say that this stuff is hard but necessary.
Yeah, exactly.
It's difficult, and just because it's difficult doesn't mean that it's not something that we all need to be examining and looking at a bit more. And picking those messages and those patterns and doing our own work and leaning into vulnerability and asking for help. Maybe when we're not at the stage when we're like, I really need some help, but maybe just asking for help. Maybe it's one of those things that we could practice asking for help where it's just like, I'll give you a bit of hand with this before it gets to that kind of desperate level.
Yeah,
maybe that will make it more of a habit. But
and I think the more that we do that, the more we'll start to recognize at those earlier levels that we need help rather than waiting until shit's blown up and it's obvious.
Yeah, I think you're right. That was a good episode. I enjoyed that conversation.
Yes. So moral of the story, get help when you need help.
Absolutely. We'll speak to you soon.
All right.
Take care. Bye.
So that's it for today. I hope you found this episode interesting and useful. Please drop me a line and let me know what you thought of it. You can email me at holly@hollywharton.com or find me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram and get in touch there. I would also love for you to join me in my private Facebook group, Business Mindset Alchemists, so we can continue the conversation there. Podcasting is such a one-way conversation. Joe and I just talked at you for the last 45 minutes or so. And so it would be great to have you join me in my Facebook group to get some feedback from you. Joe is in there as well, and you can let us know what you thought of this episode, and we can have a conversation with you about exploring this topic further. So if you head to hollywharton.com/group, you will be redirected to the Facebook group. And finally, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a quick review at iTunes or Apple Podcasts. It would mean the world to me. And remember to visit hollywharton.com/250 for the show notes on this episode. Next week, I'm back with another solo episode. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Thank you so much for listening to the Business Mindset Podcast. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for the topics that were discussed, at hollywharton.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and learn more about business mindset, join my private community for entrepreneurs at hollywharton.com/group. That will redirect you to the Facebook group. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to head over to iTunes and leave a quick review of this podcast. It just takes a minute. Thank you so much.